We're going racing, folks. Sykes, Papasavas, row 1. Douglas, Christodoulou, row 2. Clark, Gardner, row 3. Everybody kind of getting themselves into the place they need to be right now. Remember, Johnson was supposed to start P4. That's going to allow, I believe, Gardner in the number 95. Right now, he's leaving the gap. Obviously told by race control to leave that position open. He will be getting a free run down into turn number 1. We are set to go. Race 2 for USF2000 is green, green, green. And how about 6 wide down into turn number 1? And one driver's gone off the outside. Papasavas has gone into the wall, and Gardner straight into the barriers as well. So Evagor's Papasavas and Chase Gardner, your outside row, second and sixth place starters off the racetrack in turn number 1. Both drivers overcooking it, coming down into a wet turn number 1. Simon Sykes will take the lead. They'll let this thing go green for at least a half a lap for things to cycle out right now. Good start up there. Moving into second is Jacob Douglas. Everybody else working their way through turn 3 cleanly. 2 drivers, as we know. No, there's a couple drivers. 2 Jay Howard drivers together further back. I believe that might be number 1 for sure is Al Maury. Not sure who the other driver is, potentially Logan Adams in the number 9. Contact coming out of turn number 3 as they roll back on the throttle. They'll work their way down to turn number 6, 7. Now over to turn number 8. We'll see how things shake down. We are still clean and green. You wonder whether or not Gardner and Papasavas able to get themselves out of turn number 1, as we have not yet gone full course yellow. So we may be racing. Maybe the drivers further back able to continue on. All right, so drivers still in there into the corner. We'll see what's happening. Getting some, of course, reports from race control that the drivers are still on track, otherwise getting rolling. So right now we're clean and green. So the drivers who had issues tied in turn number 1 continue to roll. We'll give you a full field rundown as they come across the line. Sykes is your leader. A bit of a gap over. Christodoulou runs in second. Douglas third. Clark to the inside in fourth. Lucky Hughes runs fifth. Sam Corey 6th. Elliot Cox up to 7th. Gordon Scully, George Garcia, and Max Garcia from dead last up to 10th. Drivers involved: Al Maury, Logan Adams, Chase Gardner, and Evagor's Papasavas on the opening lap.
Difficulties for those drivers, but opportunities for others to move up in the field and take advantage of others' mistakes. You called it, and we saw it yesterday in the USF Pro 2000 series. It's the first time into the corner when your braking zones change a little bit, the track conditions are different, and sometimes it's the leader. It wasn't in this case with Simon Sykes, but sometimes the driver ahead of you goes a little too deep, others follow him in, but now we're starting to see things settle down just a little bit. And again, huge opportunity, huge jump for Nico Christodoulou, who's up into second spot. Great opportunity for Matt Clark as well, who's up into fourth. We saw those two battle head-to-head yesterday. Maybe we'll see it again.
And if we look back at yesterday, we saw the restart when they went wet for the drivers at USF Pro 2000, and it was Miles Rose, the first driver, at speed down into turn number 3. He overcooked the braking zone and went off. That gave the win to Michael D'Orlando, who was able to kind of gauge his braking zone off of what Miles was doing. On this time, instead, we're a 2 wide start. Guys in the front row, both drivers with no one to gauge off of. So let's have a look at the replay first of turn number 1 and what happened. Papasavas, I think you're going to see to the far right of the screen, driver's left comes in, and again in there, the braking zone, there's no way. He's carrying way too much speed in. Look, you can see he's got the wheels turned. He needs to release those wheels to be able to get the car to turn. He taps the wall pretty aggressively. Same goes for the number 95 of Gardner. He's too deep into the corner. He's following the lead, of course, of Papasavas. He goes too deep. He gets into the barriers, the tires, and was able to pull back and continue. So the driver starting in second and sixth had issues. Here they are coming out of turn number 3. I think you're going to see Logan Adams potentially. No, I think Logan gets tapped from behind. Indeed, as he comes through the corner there, he gets tapped. Garcia potentially, does he have any wing damage? Wondering whether or not either throttle on spin for Adams or contact from Garcia coming out of turn number 3, and then I believe just throttle on spin for Maury a little higher up on the racetrack.
In addition to the difficult braking zone in corner number 3, going down from the top speed on the circuit here at Exhibition Place down to a very slow corner, that is an uphill rise.
Yes.
That's pretty significant coming through corner number 3. So again, modulating the throttle, making sure you're getting maximum drive is part of the problem.
That's it. You're trying to get back onto that throttle to get through 4 over to turn number 5. We saw a couple of drivers have issues with that as well. So both drivers able to continue, thankfully, and they're all back onto the racetrack right now. What do we have further back there? Maury in 14th, Papasavas 15th, Adams and Gardner 16th and 17th respectively. Max Garcia, really the driver on the move right now, just made a move around the outside of Corey, so that he started dead last at 18th in these tricky conditions, playing to the hands of the 14-year-old out of Florida, Max Garcia, the number 24 Pabst Racing driver, Advanced Auto Parts, the sponsor on the side of the race car. He has worked his way into the top 5. What a drive right now for Max Garcia. Again, Todd, just 14 years of age. Wasn't able to start the season. He was only 13 during the weekend of St. Petersburg, so he had to wait, exactly. He had to wait until Sebring at the end of March to be able to start his USF2000 career. But as we see for so many young drivers over the years, midway through the season, the Road Americas, the Torontos is when the Mid-Ohio's when the drivers, the rookies, kind of get rid of those rookie stripes. You know, they've run the oval already. They've run a street circuit. They've run a natural terrain course. They've been at Indianapolis as well. So this is when we see the rookies really become more, you know, they're still freshmen, but you expect to see them run very well. That's the number 14 of Corey who's gone off. So Garcia gets by Corey. He has trouble in 8. That allows Cox to come through for P6, but not surprising right now to see Max Garcia kind of settling in.
It is, and you talk about the progression of drivers making their way through the season. That's the great thing about following the USF Pro Championships is whatever it's USF Juniors, USF 2000, or USF Pro 2000, you see the progress through the season. Sometimes it takes a driver an event or two to find their way, but then their confidence begins to build. Sometimes with a little success, maybe it's a podium finish, maybe it's that first victory, but watching them progress through the season, and we're near the end of the season for the USF 2000 series.
Garcia was obviously one of the most aggressive drivers yesterday at the end of that one. Made a move to the inside of Matt Clark to grab second away. Clark got pushed back a little bit. Right now he's closing up now onto the gearbox of Lockie Hughes. Again, Hughes, a multi-time winner on the season. In fact, won at least one race at the first 4 events on the season. And Garcia putting the pressure on the Australian now. That's the fight we're watching here. That is for 4th and 5th. Lockie Hughes in the J. Howard Driver Development number 8 and the Pabst Racing number 24 for Max Garcia. Up front, though, his teammate Simon Sykes looking to go back-to-back here in Toronto. How huge would it be for him to be able to get those victories? Was able to win in the back end of the doubleheader as well at Mid-Ohio. So, again, Sykes looking to get things rolling. Cox has had a bit of trouble. No, he's okay, but he did go a little deeper into the braking zone. You can see still how hard it is, Todd, to roll that power at a turn number 8. Every time those drivers come out over top of that concrete, they're being so ginger on the throttle to try to get back on the power. Grip levels are not getting any better right now.
No, especially in corner number 8, as you mentioned, with the concrete to asphalt and the transition back and forth. You can see how slick it is. Some of the other areas on the track, it's not quite forming a dry line. I don't think we're going to get that far during this short race, but you can see that it is improving. But other areas, just depending on where the water settles, always at the lowest point, you're going to find some very slick areas, and you still see a significant amount of spray coming down Lakeshore Boulevard.
Here comes Garcia, big run coming down through turn number 2. He'll look to the inside now, coming down to the bottom of the racetrack. Hughes should be able to run the outside line and get good grip, but no, it's done. Book it to the inside. New driver to P4, Garcia. So move Max Garcia into P4 as he's trying to chase now down the 2 Canadians who run 2nd and 3rd. Sykes up front P1, but Nico Christodoulou runs 2nd. Matt Clark now in 3rd spot, but 2.2 seconds between Clark and Garcia last time by. So still a long way to go on a 20-lapper. We're 8 laps in. We'll put lap number 9 in the record books when they come back around. You can see the gap now between 3rd and 4th. Oh, Garcia really the fastest driver on the racetrack, one of the fastest. He and Christodoulou down into the low 24s. A 124.2 last time by for Christodoulou, a 124.3 for Garcia. Clark not that far back, 124.4. So these drivers putting good lap times down right now. But again, 13 seconds slower than they were in the dry. So this is definitely a full wet race from start to finish.
Must be all that driving in those summer Florida rainstorms that's given Garcia all that extra experience. I'm joking, but it's serious that it does. It's every lap they go around, they gain a little bit more experience on the conditions and how to deal with the wet.
And here's where we go back to, where does the driver grow up? So he's a South Florida guy. He races a lot at AMR Homestead Miami Motorplex, a karting track right outside of the racetrack at Homestead. And I'll tell you, it rains almost every day there. They're used to that like 1 o'clock to 2 o'clock storm that blows through. And again, if you're a young Florida driver and you get the rain, get out there and drive, because this is when it pays off. So many times a young kart racer, a fair weather driver, it's raining, I don't want to go out and practice. That's when you need to go practice, because when the opportunity arises like this, you get a chance to shine. You can see Max Garcia putting on a show right now in the 24, all those wet racing days, those wet practice days down at Homestead.
For some of the European drivers, a similar situation as well. They have more rain races sometimes that they will compete in through Europe, and that's, again, why they will focus on the USF Pro Championships. It is the path to success to get to an elite level of open wheel racing. They bring that experience with them. They can find their way through to the scholarships, hopefully, and progress their career.
Anytime we have a young driver from England or Ireland that we know has potentially run the Formula Ford Festival, where it rains at least one time during the weekend, you expect, hey, this is the driver we think is probably going to be fast. Lundgaard, obviously very quick, European. He was the quickest driver yesterday, was able to leverage very tough conditions. Oh, big moment there for the number 12 coming through that corner. Wow, that was a sketchy one there for Maxwell Jamison. Had to correct and pointed that thing at the wall of turn number 8. He's being chased right now by Avery Towns, who's having a great drive, the young Texan. SCCA Formula Mazda and Formula X experience for Avery Towns. Big jump into USF2000 for him this year, and he's really been improving. Avery's done a great job. A tremendous young man outside the car, is very, very well spoken and getting quicker and quicker. Currently running now in the 11th spot. Here's a quick top 10 rundown for you as we're now at the halfway point. Sykes leads, Christodoulou and Clark in second and third. Garcia losing a bit of time there last time. 3 seconds from Clark back to Garcia. Lockie Hughes runs fifth. Elliot Cox, who had a rough day yesterday, got an incident early on in the run, the first lap. He runs in the 6th spot. 7th position, Sam Corey. 8th, George Garcia Arce. 9th, Jacob Douglas. And 10th is Maxwell Jamison. 11th, Avery Towns. 12th, Al Mori. Papasavas now back up to 13th. Gordon Scully, 14th. Joey Brienza, Logan Adams, and Chase Gardner rounding out the 17 drivers. Still on the racetrack, as we know. Johnson, some kind of potential gearbox issue, out on the opening lap.
Yeah, an unfortunate break for Nikita Johnson, who was one that did have a bit of an outside chance at maybe climbing back into the championship after this weekend here in Toronto, with only the triple header left in Portland. Keeping an eye on the front runners as well. Nico Christodoulou has clawed back a little bit on Simon Sykes. Matt Clark also closing in a little bit, and Max Garcia as well. Everybody tightening up that battle up at the front end. I think we're going to see some more aggressive racing as we move on. Yeah,
listen, Matt Clark's the guy who wants to win here. The key hit right now is everybody's closing up to Sykes. Matt Clark was a half a second faster than Simon Sykes last time by a 1:23.8 for Sykes, 1:23.3 for Clark. And even Christodoulou a bit quicker as well. This is 1, 2, 3, wet weather racing at its best. There is Garcia trying to climb the curbing in turn number 5, trying some new angles there. Normally we would say stay away from the curbing because the paint on those curbs is very slippery, but there are times you can kind of shortcut the course coming through there, get on top, and kind of climb, kind of hook the car around the corner a little bit.
And again, it depends on the surface of the curbing as well. It's different from the asphalt. Sometimes it does benefit you to climb a little higher up.
Look at this. A great run here for Elliot Cox in the 67. He's thinking about a top 5 finish. He watched Garcia run down Hughes, and he wants to do the same thing. So again, Garcia right there, 4th. Hughes 5th, Elliot Cox in the 67. The Sarah Fisher Hartman Racing Development Machine pushing hard as your top 3 go through turn 1.
Tightened up a little bit there at the top again, a 10th or 2 quicker by Christodoulou and Clark than Simon Sykes. Nice to see Elliot Cox having a pretty strong run here too. He's had a very difficult weekend so far.
A difficult year, Todd, to be honest. There have been incidents that he's caused a couple himself, but he's been also involved in the ones that were not of his doing at all. A racing incident yesterday between he and Logan Adams. I watched the replay on that, and they were kind of both coming into the little bit of the kink there, and they got together. He ends up in the wall. And again, for him, he needs a good result. Want to come out of here, get this weekend in Toronto wrapped up. Potentially top 6, top 5 finish would be great for young Elliot Cox. And, of course, look forward to the finale in Portland. That's 1, 2, 3, Christodoulou. Again, his debut here in 2023 in the USF Pro Championships, has been racing over in the GB3 series in Europe. And again, a number of wet weather races, more of a normalcy over there as opposed to we have here. He is putting a ton of pressure on the VRD machine. And here's one thing to point out as well. One of the great calling cards of the USF Pro Championships, Todd, is the fact that we have so many fantastic teams. The parity in the paddock. 3 different teams right now running in the top 3. Paps Racing with Sykes, VRD Racing with Chris Dulu, D-Force Racing with Matt Clark. So great to see so many teams there in the top three. 13 laps in, this time by. And again, top three drivers, you can see they've gapped themselves a bit on Garcia. That move forward kind of has stopped from dead last for Garcia. Remember, started 18th. Other drivers having issues. He was able to pull forward, made a great move to eventually get by Lockie Hughes. So Garcia seemingly have peaked here on at 4th. We got some great racing further back. One of the drivers coming forward as well. Chase Gardner trying to dig his way forward, although he is a lap back. So Gardner, I believe, did lose a lap. So although he's in the middle of a scrap and passing a bunch of guys a lap down, he's going to end up finishing in the 17th position, barring any other incidents. The fight continuing just outside the top 10. Al Morey moves himself up. Remember, Morey had that spin over in turn number 7. He's got himself back up into the top 10. Papasavas following him up as well. Those drivers to 10th and 11th now. Jameson now runs 12th. Avery Towns 13th. Joey Brienza in 14th and Logan Adams 15th. Gordon Scully there 16th and Gardner 17th. Your leaders again into turn number 8. And I'll tell you, a lot of pressure being put on by Chris Dulu. And really that's all you can do, Todd, for Nico. Put as much pressure as you can on Simon Sykes. Try to force an issue. Sykes, as we know, the championship leader, so he doesn't have to win. He wants to win. But again, Chris Dulu trying to force that error.
He has cut the lead down to under half a second from Simon Sykes. We'll watch as they come across the start-finish line again and see, yes, he has cut in a little bit further. It's now under 4/10, and Chris Dulu is pushing that car hard. You saw through corner number 8 that he sort of slid the back end ever so slightly. He's trying to hustle as much as he can just to stay in the mirrors of Simon Sykes. And right now, Sykes has a little bit of a gap. He can look back. He can see that he's not under an immediate threat as he approaches one of the corners and one of the best passing zones, and then try to focus out front and not worry about what's behind him.
Yeah, I think Matt Clark sitting there P3 is just hoping that the guys up front try to battle. He needs Chris Dulu to get up there on Sykes and potentially make a move that he could kind of capitalize on, because right now he's fallen back to about 0.8 of a second back. He still has over 2.5 seconds back to Garcia, who runs in 4th. Lockie Hughes kind of mounting a re-challenge here. He turned to the fastest lap last time through as a 1:22.6. He's a half a second faster than Sykes right now, Lockie Hughes. So that car starting to come in a little bit. You wonder whether or not we're seeing less spray. Let's put it that way. So the track is drying out a little bit. That's going to help on grip. So we'll see if everybody dials things in. Again, for the drivers, Todd, it's about reacting to the changing conditions, right? It was super wet at the start. As it dries out a bit, they're allowed to get back on the throttle. They're going to be testing their limits, right? How can I go a little bit earlier? They're seeing it. They can feel that they got more grip. The car's not sliding as much maybe as it was before. Although, remember, tires will start going away as well.
And it may actually cause the drivers to evolve their line just a little bit. The racing line is a little bit different during the rain and a very wet track. That'll change and evolve as well and maybe create opportunities for someone.
Course correction there to turn number 1 for Chris Dulu. Got the turn in and lost the rear end just a little bit as he turned in pretty aggressively. That's allowed Clark to close back up to within half a second. There's Chase Gardner again scrapping it out there with a couple of the drivers from, I want to say that's probably Morey and Papasavas. So they're the drivers that were involved in the opening lap. They're coming back forward, although, as we said, Gardner, I believe, 1 lap down. Is that a pass for the lead, potentially? Let's have a look as they come back through. Indeed, we have a pass for the lead over in turn number 3. Indeed, Chris Dulu has gone to P1, able to get by over in turn number 3. Chris Dulu, the VRD racing driver, has gone to the lead, and he's about to check out potentially now. Is there an issue for Sykes? We don't know. Right now, as they'll work their way down, there is the leader. There's Gordon Scully in the number 19, the leader coming through behind him. So Scully about to get lapped. 5 laps to go, 4 to go, and they come back around. Chris Dulu has taken the lead from Simon Sykes. Sykes now falling back into the clutches here as well of the number 1 of Matt Clark. So we have a bit of a change here.
Here's the opportunity for Clark to seize now as well with Simon Sykes in his sights. He's chasing him in the championship.
2 opportunities, right? We're going to see a replay of the lead change here, and we get a second here, folks. They're getting around Scully, so make way for it. Here it is here. Oh, Sykes makes a mistake. An uncharacteristic error as he goes too deep into the corner, has to get the car woed up, and that allows Chris Dulu to come to the inside. So again, what did we say? Push, pressure, consistently put that pressure down to see if you can't force that error, and indeed the error was forced. Sykes overcooking turn 3. Christodoulou more than happy to tuck to the apex of the corner. He gets through, and Garcia is closing up on Matt Clark as well as these laps start to wind down. Track improving lap after lap. We got ourselves a situation where we could be stacking things up for 3rd, 4th, and 5th.
4th to go, nothing settled yet. Nico Christodoulou in his first weekend this year in the USF 2000 series, out front of the leader by 1.4 seconds now ahead of Simon Sykes. Mac Clark in 3rd, and also feeling the pressure from Max Garcia.
Trouble for the number 95, potentially of Chase Gardner on the racetrack. Full course yellow right now, full course. Drivers will slow behind pace car speed. So an issue on the racetrack potentially for the 95 of Chase Gardner. We'll try to get an update as they work their way around the track, but we will reset things for you as we're going to have ourselves a wild dash. I don't know that it's an incident, being told potentially just stalled on the racetrack for Gardner, the number 95. So Christodoulou, your leader. Sykes in 2nd, Clark 3rd, 4th is Garcia, 5th is Hughes, 6th Elliott Cox, 7th George Garcia Arce, 8th is Sam Corey, 9th is Douglas, and 10th is Papa Savas. Now being told potentially it's actually a crash, and here it is here. Here's the replay. Losing the rear end coming out, tries to recorrect, hammers the right front of the car, left rear wing as well. That is big damage for Chase Gardner in the number 95, as again, he was a lap down, battling it out with a couple of Jay Howard cars, losing it coming through turn number 11. A tough weekend for Chase Gardner, the Texan, for Exclusive Autosport, as they'll park that machine coming out of 11. Man, the amount of damage there, the AMR IndyCar safety crew would have to give us some Herculean efforts to potentially get us back to green. This thing could be done with Christodoulou as the race winner. Remember, when they come back around, it's going to be lap number 18. We'd have to go green the next time by, and I just don't know with that, the extent of that accident, that damage, whether we're going to go back to green.
If you've been with us through the weekend, that hit on the wall was a little bit later in corner 11 than some of the others that we have seen through the USF Pro Championships. Sometimes the driver has clipped the inside of corner number 11 and it sent them to the outside. It looked like Chase Gardner knew that he was getting loose. You could feel it. He saw the correction and he managed to keep it straight for a little bit, but couldn't fully pull out of that slide.
Yeah, he got through the corner, back on the throttle early, coming out of turn number 10 over to 11, and the thing already slid. We saw similar to that with Miles Rowe as well, although in the dry, he lost it coming through the corner there. And at that point, you're kind of a passenger trying to hold on. It looked like it might have been just right rear impact, but once it hit, the car obviously pivoted and indeed ends up getting the right front as well. And then I believe the right rear tire shooting back and tagging that wing as well. So significant right side damage for the car of Chase Gardner, who will finish 17th in the order. Again, I don't know that we're going to be able to go back to green here. Lap number 18 will be put in the books when we come back around. Christodoulou, Sykes, Clark, very likely your podium. Garcia and Hughes, 4th and 5th. 6th, Cox. 7th, Garcia Arce. 8th, Corey. 9th, Douglas. 10th, Papa Savas. Maury, Towns, Jamison, Adams, and Brienza to cap off the top 15. We're going to look when they come back onto the front straightaway whether or not the AMR IndyCar safety crew will be able to. They would have to be very close to having that car already up on the hook and get ready to pull them off to the racetrack.
Just watching Max Garcia in the 24 coming through there at a slow speed, and he weaved over to the left side of the track, get a little bit of moisture on those rain tires, try to keep them cool, in the hopes that he can get back and still challenge for a podium position.
So very top of the screen, we're seeing the truck with the car. They've got it cleaned up. We may have a one-lap dash.
Fingers crossed.
Wow. They were able to get the car hooked up quickly onto the tow truck. They're backing it into the gap in the wall to the infield paddock. So, yeah, I think that we're probably going to go back to green flag here. This is fantastic work for the AMR IndyCar safety crew. Christodoulou, of course, not thrilled with that at all. He would love to have taken the checkered flag under the yellow, but indeed we're probably lining things up for a last lap battle, and this will be exciting with tricky conditions, low grip. Christodoulou, Sykes, Clark, Garcia, and Hughes ready to scrap it out for the positions on the podium.
Drivers weaving a little bit back and forth along Lakeshore Boulevard, trying to keep a little bit of temperature in those tires. As we mentioned, Max Garcia went through one of the small puddles that you saw off the racing line to just make sure that those rain tires are not wearing out as quickly as they can. So let's hope we've got ourselves a restart and a shootout to the finish. This is big for Nico Christodoulou, who will lead the field back to green for the first time. He's really going to feel the pressure.
Well, the interesting thing is Christodoulou is with nothing to lose, right? He's not in the championship, just a one-off year, likely for the year for him running in GB3 this year. For Simon Sykes, much different. Here he is in second with a chance to extend on the championship again. Johnson, who's second place in points, already 18th in the order. Lockie Hughes, third place in points, back P5. So Sykes really just be smart here right now. Everybody else is going to be aggressive. He just needs to be smart and try to get through with the podium and finish to potentially look forward to almost locking this championship down. Clark, though, of course, the pressure for being here in Canada, he'd love to be up on the podium here as well. There's a lot that's going to happen, but let's put it this way again. Track drying again a little bit here and there. We saw this on the restart yesterday for Miles Rowe. The first driver into 1, the first driver into 3 with these track conditions chasing. Christodoulou's going to set the mark for everybody coming into turn number 1. They'll work their way to turn 8. Single file restart. The pace car, of course, into pit lane. How about a one-lap dash to settle it here in USF2000, the back end of the doubleheader here, the Cooper Tires Grand Prix of Toronto. If you're here early, this is a great place to be. Here they come. We're back to green flag, and a good jump for Christodoulou. The big run down into turn number 1. Hold on, folks. This will be wild. He'll run the full race line. Clark's going to go to the middle as well. Big bomb to the inside. Comes Garcia. They'll work their way out of turn number 1. Are they clean? They are. Side by side, Sykes and Clark, though. Clark on the outside. Sykes on the inside. They're looking for a Canadian 1-2 here in Toronto. They'll work their way down the back straightaway. Clark alongside Sykes. I'll tell you this. If Clark can hold the spot and keep him pinched down, there's more grip on the outside. Clark's going to tuck back to the inside. Here comes Garcia again to the inside. Clark around. Contact. Clark spinning. Garcia gets into him. Clark tried to come across the bow. Garcia clocks in the 67 with nowhere to go. He stopped as well. Here comes your leaders. That's going to bring Lockie Hughes, I think, up into the second or the third spot, and the 10 of Garciarces up to P4. So chaos in turn number 3. Christodoulou emerges as the leader, and he will very likely cruise it through. Drivers involved in that one: Cox, Garcia, Clark. As Garcia looked to the inside, Clark was coming across the bow. Left front to right rear contact. Both those drivers going around. But through the final couple of corners, it is a Canadian victory in Toronto. Nico Christodoulou, the Torontonian, victorious on the streets of Toronto. The VRD driver wins race number 2. Simon Sykes will come across the line to finish second. What a championship weekend for the driver out of Georgia. Lockie Hughes improves up to 3rd. Garciarce in 4th. Jacob Douglas somehow getting back to 5th. He was 9th at the restart. Sam Corey 6th. Evagores Papasavas 2nd to 18th to 7th. He gets back to P7. Avery Towns up into the 8th spot. Al Morey, who spun on the opening lap, ends up in 9th. And Maxwell Jameson in 10th. Horrible finish for Matt Clark back in 13th. Garcia 14th. Elliot Cox, who ran 6th all race long. What a great drive. And he had nowhere to go. Literally had to just pull off the side and stop. I doubt there's anything wrong with the car of Cox. You know, I think he finished the race, so he obviously was able to go, as did Clark, as did Garcia. They were able to get rolling once again. No damage to any of those cars. Just slight contact coming through turn number 3, and again, that happened on the concrete inside as well. No grip at all.
The drama turned to tragedy very quickly for Matt Clark, and Max Garcia, too, who had climbed all the way up through the field from the start of the race, who ends up falling back on the last lap with Elliot Cox, who looked like he was going to at least finish his weekend with a solid run and something positive to move forward with 5th. He winds up finishing 15th. But how about Nico Christodoulou?
Wow.
Gets the ride for this weekend, comes away with the victory in race number 2.
Yeah, big one for VRD Racing. Christodoulou runs for their sister team over in Europe in the GB3 series. A one-off the opportunity to come over here and run with VRD. Dan Mitchell, I'm sure, will be thrilled with the win for Christodoulou for sure. For Simon Sykes, though, again, all he had to do was survive that last lap. 2nd place in points. Again, the driver in 2nd in the championship, Nikita Johnson finishing back at 18th position. So Sykes will again stretch that margin significantly. He's going to have at least a 60-point lead heading in to Portland in the season finale of the triple header. So all but done right now. now, the championship for Simon Sykes. This driver here, though, when you come, the maple leaf on the helmet for Nico Christodoulou. A win on home soil. There's Dan Mitchell. Christodoulou winning here in the streets of Toronto. That's the way to get it done. Any Canadian wants to win here in Toronto. There's Jacob Loomis as well, who runs the USF Juniors team. Brandon Graham as well. Huge victory here for Nico Christodoulou. Big win here in Toronto. Simon Sykes coming home in second. Lockie Hughes will join them on the podium. Folks, those of you tuning in on the broadcast here in the USF Pro Championships app or YouTube channel, stay tuned. We'll be right back with Championship Victory Lane presentations. Indeed, folks, welcome down here to Victory Lane as we get things underway, as we've capped off this event here for the drivers in USF2000, a wild one in tough conditions. We watched these drivers work their way forward, some from the very tail of the field, and a huge victory, of course, for a young Canadian here on home soil, part of the Cooper Tires Grand Prix of Toronto. Three guests from Cooper Tires are going to help pass out some awards. Let's start with the driver coming home very nicely on the final lap into third spot, Lockie Hughes for J. Howard Driver Development, finishing in third. Mike Rennie will bring our trophy in here for Lockie. Great job. Lockie Hughes coming in that third spot. Great job for him. Well done. Finishing in second place. Huge job here to be able to get the points he needs. The gap right now, massive, likely over 60 points heading to Portland for the finale. For Pabst Racing coming home in second, Simon Sykes. Simon Sykes coming home in that second position. Great job for Simon. Alex Uzelak will come in here to bring that P2 trophy for Simon. Well done. Huge points for Simon here, having led. Just a little bit of a mistake, dropped him from first to second, but the points still fantastic. Although the driver able to capitalize on that issue, then handle it on the final lap. What a huge win. Always great to see a Canadian win here in Toronto, folks. Put your hands together from VRD Racing. Our winner is Nico Christodoulou. Hop down here with me first. Obviously, running in Europe throughout the year, you get a chance to come and run at the hometown in Toronto. First, tell me, to win here, to race here as a Canadian, how's it feel?
Yeah, I mean, as my first time racing a car in Canada, I mean, it's a really good experience, especially on home soil. I don't live too far, so it's good to be home. And yeah, I enjoyed the rain. I was really hoping it would rain today because that's pretty much all the weather we get out there. And yeah, I just took advantage of the wet weather tires and took when he made the mistake in turn 3, I was able to get in the inside and drive away.
Tell me about the team a little bit. Who do you want to thank?
Yeah, I'd love to thank Dan, Russ, Brandon. I'd love to thank my dad. I'd love to thank all my sponsors and the whole VRD team for helping this weekend happen.
Well done. Get on top of the podium. We got a P1 trophy for Nico Christodoulou. Gus Leota, the general manager of Goodyear Canada, giving us a hand here, passing out that P1 trophy for Nico Christodoulou. We mentioned in the broadcast it was all about putting the pressure on, trying to see if he can't force Simon Sykes into a mistake. A minor error for Simon, just missed the braking zone a little bit, drops him to second spot. Nico able to capitalize and come up the inside, and then expertly handled that restart as well, down into turn number 3 to get a fantastic victory for Dan Mitchell and the VRD crew. Nico Christodoulou, who runs in the GB3 series. We talked about the fact that that program regularly runs in wet conditions. A lot more rain, of course, in the European events, the Great Britain events, and he has done a great job over there. And again, for him to come here to be able to run on home soil as well, right? The Torontonian lives in Vaughan, to be able to have the chance to race here in front of friends and family, and again, step to the top of the podium as well. Amazing. Good job for Simon Sykes and for Lockie Hughes as well. Put the pressure on throughout the race. The contact in the end there between Garcia and Clark. Cox with nowhere to go. Shook things up in terms of the overall top 5. One more race still to come here for the USF Pro Championships as part of the Cooper Tires Grand Prix of Toronto. USF Pro 2000 to wrap up their doubleheader here as well. Michael D'Orlando, a big win yesterday in tricky conditions. I would expect, based on the blue sky we're starting to see, that we will be dry by the time those drivers roll out for their race here a little later on here this morning. But it is going to be a fantastic day here at the Honda Indy Toronto. A little damp this morning, but it's going to be gorgeous here midday and throughout the afternoon. The Honda Indy Toronto drivers, the NTT IndyCar Series drivers will put on a fantastic show for you. But these are the future stars of this program. We talk about it all the time. This is where you start if you want to work your way into IndyCar, and we hope to see all 3 of these drivers running here at IndyCar one day soon. All right, guys, drop those trophies down. You can throw them in front of you. Champagne is ready to roll. It is time to wrap things up for USF 2000. Grip it and rip it, boys. Celebration time here for USF 2000. Nico Christodoulou with the win. Hometown boy gets it done. We will wrap things up for the broadcast, folks. Those of you tuning in, come on back for USF Pro 2000 later today on behalf of Anderson Promotions and Cooper Tires. My name's Rob Howden. Bye for now.
Great kickoff.